All right, everybody, welcome back to our part two of the overpopulation video, along with any other videos we're going to play. It is definitely, the wind is definitely picking up. I don't know if the mic is picking it up. Like I said, I have my filters on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But we're not going to waste a whole lot of time on intro because I literally just ended that one. There isn't a whole lot to set up on this one. You've either been listening to that last one or you haven't. And if you haven't, you don't care. You just want to hear this one. Either way is fine. It's your preference. But we're going to go ahead and get into this. It's a video from Big Think about the quote-unquote overpopulation myth. So let's just get on with the rest of this one.
Crop yields across the world have doubled, tripled, or quadrupled over the last 50 years, which means that the amount of food we produce per person has actually gone up, not down, despite the fact that we have billions of more people on Earth.
So, even though what she's probably going to say is that we have more than enough food to feed everybody, what she's actually just admitted is that we're burning through way more resources than is necessary to support the population that we have. Now, even when the population goes down, it's not stopping us from destroying the environment and doing as much damage as we can. We don't give a crap about that.
I think a key argument that people often say in terms of climate change is that there's just far too many people. And they'll often point to particular countries where fertility rates are still very high. There are some countries, for example, across Africa, where the average number of children per woman is 4 or 5.
So just as I explained in the last video, but I'll kind of just recap here. Just the fact that there are more people is not damaging the environment and not causing climate change. This is a straw man argument they're building so that you go, well, that doesn't, more people still exist. We're not going to just kill everybody off so the environment can still go. We're not Thanos. This is actually a lie. The fact is, the more people we have, the more damage we're doing in order to support those people. Can we mitigate that? We absolutely could. We can do better, greener practices that can help support a larger population and still have a healthier planet for it, while hopefully still trying to whittle down that population to a more controllable size where we can more effectively manage our environment and the planet as a whole to reduce the impact we have on the only thing that we have in the entire known universe that can support our being alive people. So, yeah, so again, this has been done earlier in the video. They're drawing this line like our only, and this happens in a lot of these videos I've noticed, with not just environmental, but with Christianity and stuff. They'll take a part of your argument out of context to say, isn't it ridiculous to say that, creationists really love this, turn a bear into a porcupine. You can't turn a bear into a porcupine, therefore evolution doesn't exist. Taking a small part of what's been said about the theory of evolution and making it so that, well, if we just take this one part, then you can't prove it. Where that part is instrumental in a whole giant philosophy that proves it. And just that one part alone proves nothing. It's not supposed to. Just like I can take some amphibole, it's a rock, and say, look, see, granite's not real because there's no other stuff here, basically. But granite is amphibole and silica dioxide and feldspar. That's it, feldspar. So feldspar, silica dioxide, and amphibole create granite. That's the three things you need for it to be an actual granite. Not granitic, which means something similar, but not necessarily with all the component parts. An actual granite is those three things. So you can't then take one thing and say, see, granite's not a thing because I only have this. And this means that there's no granite. Because look, here it is, all by itself. That doesn't prove granite doesn't exist. Granite is the whole thing. It's not one piece of the thing. And one piece of the thing isn't the whole thing. You don't have granite by having a part of it. You don't have your whole argument by saying, but a bear can't turn into a porcupine. That's not even the argument. It's simply pointing out a methodology, and they ignore it. And so that's exactly what we have here, taking this, well, people exist, therefore overpopulation, you know, can't be the problem because we can't just kill everybody. And therefore, it can't be the answer, you know. People being born isn't causing climate change. Haha, got you. And it's like, no, that's people being born are a problem, but it's a problem because of what happens, not A plus B equals C. It's not that simple. So they're trying to make the argument simple, so it makes no sense. But it's more algebraic, maybe even calculus than that, and not just the basic arithmetic that they're trying to show, because it doesn't make sense in that format, because it doesn't make sense.
I think what's really key to highlight here is that in these countries where fertility rates are very high, the incomes are low, and per capita CO2 emissions are also very, very low, extremely low. That means that when you do the maths on this, you could actually add billions of people at those very low incomes.
In other words, it's okay to have slaves and serfs as long as the masters are the ones that are always rich, and we don't have very many of them, and they have all of the money and power. I mean, it's okay then. It's great. That's what we want. Jesus.
It would have almost no impact on global CO2 emissions. I think the other issue that some people are now highlighting is the notion of underpopulation. Actually, population growth slows down too much and it creates particular problems.
And just one more thing, all those people with a low income, of course, these are usually in poorer places. They don't necessarily have like a blender and a microwave and a television that they're running. So of course they're going to have a much lower impact. But let's not forget that some place like that's not going to have a lot of industry and commercialization, which is also going to lower the impact of these people who their entire, world is going to be like collecting rocks or something, and by hand, not using tools. So even though industry happens and people do have jobs, although the unemployment there is usually, like 50% or, above 30% for sure. The fact is, if we look at industrialized places, all those people with low income, they're still feeding the giant factories that are producing all the CO2 anyways. So even if they're not at home with all the microwaves and televisions, we're still pumping out all that CO2 and methane and everything else into the atmosphere because we already have those infrastructures in place, and we'll just continue to build more and fill them with all these low-income workers who don't have any choice in the matter. So in that scenario, it has no impact on whether we're causing climate change or not, to just make everybody low income.
I think this won't be a problem for many countries in the world, but I think for some, especially richer countries with aging populations, you will start to see problems with particular demographics and particular balances of different demographics. The key problem with aging populations is that within a country, you want a large number of people in the kind of working age bracket. Those are the people.
So just remember, if you're tuning in this one, you didn't tune in the last one. This is a big argument I said they were going to make, that their solution to overpopulation is more overpopulation. Now, even if it completely ravages and destroys the environment, that's not a concern of theirs. They just went ahead and tried to tell you that wasn't even going to happen. It's totally the wrong way, which no amount of real data searching proves what she had just said, other than in those pocket places, which are not representative of the greater world. But they're about to do the economy stupid. We need more people to feed into the system because old people need money. And as long as we don't have enough people to give old people money, we're going to have big problems, which is really not the way it works if we do it right. but they're about to do this, so I'm just giving you a heads up. This is the section that we're moving into. It's all economy, because they already just told you the environment wasn't a problem. Otherwise, you'd be like, yeah, but what about the environment?
That are propping up the economy and driving the economy forward. I think the problem that some countries will have with large aging populations is that they won't have a large enough group of people in the working age category. I think there is this comparison that's often made by people that say that the problem is overpopulation, is that humans are often compared to a cancer. Well, it's true that we do have environmental impacts and we do have large problems to solve. I think it's a very dire prediction that we don't contribute anything to the world. If your messaging is that the human in front of you is a cancer, what you're saying is that you don't want them to be there and you think that they should be removed. If this is going to be the comparison we make on how to tackle environmental problems, it's a really damaging messaging and just one that won't get us there.
So, she's talking about a few things there. One of them is the messaging and whether it's a good way to sell it to people. And she's right, that's not a good way to sell to people. I personally am not concerned with selling the truth to people. The truth is the truth. I don't need to sell it to you unless we live in a world in which only the majority rules, in which case the majority has to be convinced in order for us to do the right thing. I think that's one of the dumbest things that people have done on this planet is to design that kind of system. But yeah, so we're saying that, you know, the people, it's they tie so many knots here that it's hard to just work through these and get it correct, and then also keep everything straight in my head about what they're talking about. But I think it's just suffice it to say that the impact about the cancer, that's right, that we are cancerous. It isn't that human beings are cancer. It isn't that you look at a person and that person is cancer. It is our effect on the planet that is cancerous, not any one human being. You can't just look at the person in front of you and say, that's cancer, I don't want it to be there. What we do is we look at our impact as a species as cancerous on our planet. So there's this line there where she's trying to make you hate another person and then realize, but I don't hate that person, therefore they're right and I'm wrong. And that's just a dumb line to draw again, because that's not what it is. The other thing is she just really kind of went over real quick and said, I mean, it's not like we're not having a good impact, and just dropped it. She didn't name anything what we've done for the planet that's good. She hasn't proven anything. She just threw the line out there and then just kind of dropped it and ran for something else. There is nothing that I know of that we have contributed as a species that has made the planet better than before we existed. Now, for a while, we had an equilibrium with the planet and our environment, but that didn't last very long. There are entire species of megafauna extinct because we murdered them all and they're all dead. They do not exist. Now, existing today, they could still all be alive. We could have giant sloths and a lot of other things. But we murdered them all and they are now gone. We're not even talking about our environmental impact that we've had since industrialization, and before that, of course, but that really ramped it up. We have decimated entire species. Now, not to say we're the only ones who have ever done that. There's always competing within different spots in the food web, where one species will try to compete for the same spot another one will, and one of them is going to go extinct and one of them isn't. And sometimes they're going to fight, and one will bite and prey on and hurt another one of the competing species. So that does exist in nature, but no creatures has had the impact and the direct link to extinction of so many species on their own that we have directly impacted with the extinction of species on a mass scale before we ever even started to become civilized societies. So we definitely had a balance, but I haven't seen anything that says we're doing better, making our planet better than it was before we came. There isn't anything that I can think of that we can do that makes this planet better than if we didn't exist at all. We can, however, do things to make this planet good. Like not as good as if we didn't exist, but that's time has come and gone. I don't want all people to disappear because the planet will be better for our extinction. I just want us all to exist on a planet that we help make better than what it is now. Not better than it was before, because the planet was doing just fine without us. It doesn't need our help. It only needs our help when we make it sick ourselves. When we're the disease, yeah, we need to give it the cure. But before it was doing fine. What we need is to put everything back on track, rebalance the equation so that the Earth can thrive and survive on its own, but with our assistance. And the assistance is the balance to the effect that we're having. You take out, you also need to give back. That is the balance that we need to have. It's not going to make the planet better. It'll make it better than it is now, but not better than when we came along. But it can negate the negative impact that we have had. We can have a balance with the planet and just make everything good, right? So she has, again, dropped the line of us making things better without proving or saying a damn thing about what that means. But I'm telling you now, we can make it better if we're looking at right now. But if we're saying that human beings have just made the planet better by existing, that has never, ever been the case. And again, I want to say one more time for people in the cheap seats, I am not saying we should make the human race extinct. A lot of people believe that. I know some people in particular who believe that that would be better. I think we all should be able to be alive and live our lives. I think overpopulation is a big problem. If we can cut down on that, that we'd have a better chance of having balance with our planet, where we're definitely going to do bad stuff, but we're going to do good stuff to make up for it, because the bad stuff we do can't come back and bite us in the ass. We need the good stuff as well. And if we only put out bad stuff, we will never get any more of the good stuff. So we need a balance so that the life and planet will be good to us by us being good to it. We'll do this one right here. It's only a 4-minute, and then once that's done, we'll just call this part 2 finished up. Again, I will watch the longer ones and make notes, and I'll be able to come back and talk about them rather than just sit here and watch this one that's an hour and 13 minutes, for example, or this one for it's an hour and a half. We don't need to sit through those and talk about it and have me pause and everything. I'll just come back with notes. I'll tell you about what video I watched. You're free to go by and watch those videos as opposed to just listening to them on here, which is at least something. But it's always better to just go watch them yourself and really absorb it, and then you can comment on. I'd almost be like a commentary track. So this one is John Stossel again, our friend John Stossel. It looks like he's starting off with a clip from Trevor Noah, probably The Daily Show when he was still doing that. It's called Hurricanes Not Caused by Man-Made Climate Change. So I'm pretty sure this is probably, was it 7 years ago? Okay. So I'm pretty sure that this is not in response, well, it's 7 years ago. So I know that it's not in response to people saying we actually made a hurricane and directed it at Republicans for the voting, purposes that they said. This is just in response to climate change, and it's climate change making things worse and making hurricanes more intense and that kind of thing. I believe this is just a response to that general idea. So let's go ahead and give this a listen. And like I said, when we're done, we'll be done with this at whatever time. This is only a 4-minute video, but with pauses and comments and stuff, who knows how long it's going to go. So we'll see.
Hurricane Irma is the most powerful Atlantic storm ever recorded.
This hurricane is frightening, but what the media is doing with it is even crazier. And I don't mean the coverage of the damage, much of that's good. What's crazy is how eager the left is to blame the storms on us.
First off, I don't know what he means by us. I'm guessing he's considering himself, I mean, not that he's not, but he's considering himself a part of the human race and therefore speaking to how dare you say humans are responsible. But it seems like maybe he's reacting more like right-wing Republicans, that they're part of the problem, and that we're blaming them, which is absolutely true. But we're not saying it's a right versus left-wing thing. We're just saying people on the right are more predisposed to doing that kind of thing. But what he did say was people on the left are eager. Like, we've been sitting here waiting, going, God, I hope a giant hurricane comes and destroys half of the planet so I could yell at Republicans. No, we don't want this crap to happen. We're not eager for anything. We're not chomping at the bit. We're hoping this stuff just doesn't happen. We would love it if climate change wasn't a thing and somebody came out and like 5 years ago, we were mistaken. This was like a little blip and everything's good. Don't worry about it. That would be awesome, man. That would be basically impossible because of physics, but it would still be, I would love that, man. I don't want to yell at people because of the climate change environment. And then if we could just disappear all the nuclear weapons as well, man, we could just go about our lives and never once think about man-made, apocalypse stuff. We still have asteroids and, X-flares destroying our communication systems and all of our electronics and everything. We still have ways to reach apocalypses for sure, even in a not so long time from now. But if we could just eliminate those two things, life would be a dream. Shaboop shaboop.
Like, maybe ISIS should start taking credit for hurricanes. They should. ISIS should just be like, every time a hurricane hits, ISIS should be like, that was us. We sent that storm. We sent that storm to destroy America. And then Republicans will be like, that's ridiculous. You guys can't cause hurricanes. And they'll be like, well, then who causes the hurricanes? They'll be like, they're caused by climate. Oh, man, climate change.
It's hilarious that he's doing this bit back then when that's taking the sensical approach that Republicans would never say that somebody could actually cause a hurricane, when that's literally what they just did not that long ago. So it's really funny because, well, of course people can't. We're not going to tell ISIS, hey, you definitely created a hurricane. That's ridiculous. Is it though? Is it though, Trevor?
Nicely played. Damn it.
Nicely played. You see, we never used to have hurricanes before, and now we do. It must be because...
God, that's so stupid. That's so stupid. Man, it's a binary system. It's yes or no, it's on or off, it's 0 or 1. Hurricane exists, yes, or hurricane exists, no. Nothing is a data point with these guys. There's no information inherent in anything. Did hurricanes exist? Because if they did, climate change doesn't exist. Was the Earth not frozen ball in space? Do we not have ice ball Earth? Oh, global warming's not a thing. That's warm has always been a thing. Do deserts exist? Have we had drought? Yep, therefore no climate change. If a thing existed before, that means that it's not being affected otherwise. It's still a thing that exists. Oh man. It's so stupid. It's so childish, right? So childish to break things down in such a small little block to say, green things exist, therefore we don't even need trees. I could just paint all these blocks green and it's okay. All we need is something green.
Trump pulled out of the Paris Accord comic. But the news media do it too. If I Google climate change, I get even Fox News admits climate change made Irma strong. In Manhattan, strangers accost me. Yes, Fossil, now will you admit you're wrong? Look what fossil fuels did. But no, I won't admit I was wrong. I won't accept the way the media sleazily slip in those words, man-made climate change.
How many once-in-a-lifetime events is it going to take in our lifetime for everyone to admit that maybe man-made climate change is real?
Catch that? Man-made climate change. Climate change is real. Climate changes. Always has, always will. Over the past 300 years, since what's called the Little Ice Age, the globe warmed about 3 degrees. Yes, today's greenhouse gases probably increase the...
So I don't know what he means by 3 degrees. When we're talking about climate change, we're talking about Celsius. And when I was looking at this little ice age that he was talking about, it went to like, I think it was like 0.6 degrees below norm, or below the 14.5 or whatever it is. It went down from our normal 0.6 on the graph that he showed on his video. And the warming periods that he's talking about that happened, that he pointed out, were just, they're warming, so warming happens, were 0.2 to 0.3. So we're talking about less than 1 degree Celsius difference. And that isn't 3 degrees Fahrenheit either. I don't know what it is. It's like 1 point something or 2 point something, but not 3. So maybe he's even rounding up with the Fahrenheit. Even then, I don't think he's right. I don't think he's even close enough to 3 to just round up to it. But that may be what he's talking about. But he's not making it clear. And being as what we talk about in terms of climate change is Celsius, it definitely wasn't even 1 degree Celsius. So this is very misleading information that he's given right there.
warming. And warmer oceans may strengthen hurricanes. But we can't be sure. Much of the change is just natural.
So he says that warming is happening, and he slips this in order for you to think that he's saying one thing when he's saying another. So he's saying that cold happens and that warming periods happen, and we can't be sure that it's man-made. But that's not actually what he says. He says the ocean temperatures are rising, and they may, see, he says may cause stronger hurricanes. So when he says, but we're not sure, it makes it sound like he's talking about the first thing. But he actually just goes into the sentence with, it may be causing more severe. So he's already setting up that this isn't even a plausible thing. So when he says, we're not sure, he's talking about all of it, but he's also talking about we're not even sure that warmer waters create more severe hurricanes. Or maybe he says we can't be sure. However he puts it, he is wrong, because physics exists, because we know how things work. We've been alive on this planet for a really long time, and we've studied it, and we've seen, the way that these things, the systems on the planet, and how they interact, how wind is generated, where energy for wind comes from, the imbalance that creates something like a tornado or hurricane. We know how these things work. There is not an if. And we know that it's like fire. It isn't like it in that it's the same system. It's like fire in that you need the three things. You need oxygen, you need heat, and you need a fuel source. If you have those things, you have fire, right? Or at least the potential for fire, depending on how much of any of those resources you have. So hurricanes are a very similar thing, and we need a few things. I don't have all those right in front of me, but we do need these few things to be true. But if those are true, then hurricane happens. And we also know that in order to intensify, we just roll this slider up and down in this part or another part. One of the biggest parts is this imbalance of throwing more heat into the system. We know that creates more severity. Not may create, not we can't really know. We do know, and what he is saying is an outright lie.
We humans are not so important. Even if the Paris Accord were honored by everyone, and it wouldn't have been, its proponents admitted it would only have slowed warming maybe by 2 degrees over a century.
That last part anyways is true, because we know we can't get people to do better. Not because that's as good as we can get anyways. Even if everybody did what they were supposed to, man, we can't do any better. We might as well, just no, because we can do better. We just know nobody is going to. So we try to get them to do the bare freaking minimum, and they're not doing it. That's like, you could pass with a 51 and you got a 49. It's not that we didn't give you every chance in the world. We even had an open book test, but you still got a 49 because, you idiot, you weren't able to pass. Not because the passing grade didn't exist and you could have got an A, but we weren't even asking for an A.
Also, despite the media's hype, storms are not increasing. Tornadoes are down. And here's a graph of the number of hurricanes hitting America. Do you see a trend?
So, global warming can increase the number of these things, but that's not really the metric. The metric is the intensity. When you have a higher percentage of hurricanes that are 3 and higher, that's the metric. Even if you only have 4 hurricanes, if they're all over 3, that is the metric we're using. It is not that there are definitely 10% more of them.
I don't. One active year doesn't prove a trend. It's statistical noise.
The most powerful Atlantic Ocean hurricane recorded in history.
The current storms will cause horrible damage. The worst thing we can do is to suffocate recovery by limiting fossil fuels. As climate scientist Roy Spencer put it on my show,
Forcing unrealistic, expensive energy solutions upon the poor is going to kill people. We know that poverty kills. That's not theoretical. It happens today. I would rather save people today from poverty than theoretically save people in the future.
Me too. Let's remember that.
That argument seems to make sense, and people are like, yeah, if climate change is going to happen, but I can feed a person right now, and they can be a live person, that's what I'd want to do, right? The problem is that even if climate change is a tomorrow thing, tomorrow will become today. So what you're doing is saying, I'd rather save a few people right now than everybody later. I don't care if everybody dies. It ain't me and it ain't right now. That's what they're saying.
And as this movie plays in theaters.
Storms get stronger and more destructive.
I was surprised to learn that the first words spoken in Al Gore's new movie, An Inconvenient Sequel, are mine. Gore runs a clip of me saying his prediction of a 20-foot sea level rise was absurd. Then Gore narrates.
The most criticized scene in the movie An Inconvenient Truth was showing that the combination of sea level rise and storm surge would flood the 9/11 memorial site. And people said, what a terrible exaggeration.
Hurricane Sandy slammed into New York City last night, flooding the World Trade Center site.
Stossel doubts Gore's claim, but pictures don't lie. The 9/11 memorial was underwater. Stossel's an idiot. But wait a second. Gore's video was from Superstorm Sandy. Average sea level didn't rise 20 feet. It rose 1 inch. And not because we burned fossil fuels. Sea levels have been rising about 1 inch per decade for 1,000 years. Climate changes. It does no good to scream man-made every time there's a terrible hurricane. Let's focus on helping the victims.
So again, this is the 3-card Monte approach of look over here, not where you're supposed, not where we don't want you to. So unfortunately, the guy has a point. Al Gore was talking about average sea level rise, and flooding that memorial was due to a storm, not average sea level rise. So yeah, that doesn't help. when you do that kind of thing. It makes it look like, hey, the idiot doesn't know what he's talking about, because the idiot doesn't. But using something that doesn't actually prove what you were trying to say also isn't it? Especially when in your own video you're talking about much larger timescales than, you know, 5 years from then, and then saying, see, in 5 years it happened. That's no. That just weakens your argument. Not that Al Gore isn't, saying things that are absolutely true in all of his videos that he puts about it. It's just, it undercuts it when you do stuff like that, right? It's the same thing that Fauci did when he started walking back all the things he said about masks and stuff, and really undercut, his credibility and anybody's ability to believe the things that he has to say. When all the science is on his side for the things he says, and then he walks it back and the science doesn't support it, suddenly his credibility is gone with both the people who agree with what he says because it's right, and the people who don't agree with what he says because they thought he was wrong anyways. So, but again, he's going to the let's help the victims of this horrific storm, not let's keep this from happening for other people. So it's again the look over here, these people are in trouble, we need to help them, not don't look over there for the giant amount of more people that are going to be in trouble because we didn't fix it. So that was it. So that was his entire thing. So yeah, this is definitely somebody I'm going to get some more stuff from, because he seems to be big on the climate change deniers. So it's definitely something we're going to be able to get into and follow. And sorry, message on my phone. I'm just getting through. Somebody we're definitely going to be able to do some more fun stuff with his videos and the ridiculousness that he comes up with in all these standard arguments against climate change, which are just inherently false. So yeah, we're gonna end it here. It's definitely gonna be a shorter video. That's fine. It happens. I apologize for people who have a sort of schedule where I know this has happened to me, where like I listen to a podcast and it's always like an hour-long podcast, and so I always know I can have that entertainment for an hour. I used to listen to some guys who were doing Pokemon Go podcasts, but the company Niantic really kind of treated their player base like garbage and was raising all their prices while trying to tell us how to live our lives at the same time, even against the things that they themselves were doing, as if we were the bad guy the whole time that they were doing these other things. And it's just, I kind of just got tired of it. Besides, I'd rather play a main series game than the mobile had a lot of promise. I enjoyed it for what I did play. Sometimes I still go back for like Go Fest and stuff, but for the most part I've kind of left. But the point I'm making is I would listen to those podcasts and they'd be like an hour long. And so I know I'd have an hour of entertainment there. And I was able to listen to them at work sometimes, depending on what I had to do. I could just put in some earphones and do my job, and nobody would really bother me, you know what I mean? And I can get an hour's podcast in. I still had to be aware and pay attention, so I couldn't just, play music loud. It had to be just for me, and so I'd have an earphone in and I'd listen to it. And if somebody needed something, I only had one earphone in, which also isn't good for music. You want both the headphones in so you can get that full experience. But I'd have one headphone in, I'd listen to the podcast, and I'd have, this is my hour of entertainment, And I'd always count on that. I'd always get around an hour of entertainment. And then there's this, and then I have this series of podcasts I'd listen to so that I know I could fill this particular space of time, while I'm doing my work. And so I know it can be frustrating sometimes when you count on that and then it's shorter. You get less of that entertainment that you're really counting on. So I can completely understand how that can be frustrating if it's something you're looking forward to. But for some people, and sometimes just a shorter video is what you're looking for. Like I watch who's it? I don't know. Let's just say I've been seeing this guy. I think it's a Cyman Dan is his channel, and he does some shorter form videos. So I guess maybe that's not a good one. I watch also this channel called Gut Sick Gibbon, and she does a lot of creationist debunking and evolutionist, and she's a primatologist, not a climatologist, a primatologist. Um, but she has some really long videos, and she has some ones that are a bit shorter. And sometimes it really depends on how much time I have, what mood I'm in, what I'm doing, where I will specifically want a shorter video. But a lot of times I listen to some of this stuff while I'm going to sleep because it's nice. They're just talking. It's distracting and informational enough that I pay attention, but not so much, especially when I'm on like the fifth debunking that they're doing. Even if it's a completely different person, they're all saying the same thing. You can kind of just listen, but also tune it out and get some sleep. So sometimes I want a longer video, sometimes I want a shorter video. When I watch those longer videos that way, that probably does them a lot of good because I don't click off the commercials because I fall asleep and then the commercials just run. So, that's good for them and their monetization for that. Anyways, we're going to close this off here. I have a lot of editing to do. It's supposed to be pretty sunny again tomorrow, so maybe we'll be back at this tomorrow. Maybe we'll just do a discussion or a more traditional podcast about something. We'll see what comes up. Tomorrow is another day. It's a Monday for me. Today's Sunday, so we'll see if a bunch of stuff comes up that needs to be done because it's Monday or not. Yeah, I mean, it's just me going over and explaining how stuff's going to work. I guess it really doesn't matter in the end. Like I say, you're going to be back when the next one comes up, or you're not, anyways. And it could be a month from now, it could be a week from now. You could listen to this one second and this tomorrow, or next week one's first. I guess it really isn't all that relevant, anyways. So I will talk to you guys in the next one, or this may be the very last one that you have watched of mine, and so, or will ever will. So I won't talk to you again if that's the case. But for everybody else, I will see you in the next one. I don't know why people say that. I don't see you. Like people on the YouTube aren't seeing their audience. Even when you have chat, you don't see the people. So I will not see you next time, but I will definitely, be with you next time. God, that sounds religious, right? Podcast be with you. I think we're going to call it out there. Podcast be with you, everybody.